All right, so on previous videos, I had mentioned I want to try different raker heights. I want to try this, I want to try that. Well, today, we're not going to do that. That's because I've been looking at my chain and I've been comparing it to like the stuff that's really, really fast, like the angles that I run on square, all that stuff. I'm still nowhere close to that. So I decided today we're just going to go full tilt. Whatever I have on this grinder, we're just going to go all the way. We're going to take it as far as it can on this tilt. We're going to take this as top plate angle as far as we can. We're going to run the tilt function here as far as we can. We're just going to go full tilt. Take everything as far as we can, sharpen it up, and see what happens. You know what I mean? So it's 40 degrees up here. It's 40 degrees across the top plate with the 10-degree tilt. Now, if you guys are curious to know how this relates to a file, just I'll get more detailed with it in the future. But this tilt function here, this is basically putting more hook in the tooth. So if you've ever been in a situation where you had too much hook or not enough hook or all that stuff, that's kind of what this is. You get more hook by cutting deeper into the gullet with a file. This just kind of, it's kind of just sets up the angle to where it does it. I can tell you it doesn't appear to be super drastic compared to what I do, but I haven't ground one yet. We're going to see here in a minute. I've almost got her set up and we're going to see what it does. You know what I mean? Let's just see how she performs when we go full tilt. I'm suspicious that all the stuff I don't like is due to a combination of everything. Having a sloppy chain in the bar, and the angles are just a little you know what I mean? So we're just going to go as far as we can right now and just see what happens. You know what I mean? Because you put more hook in it, then you need more top plate, you need more this or that or whatever, just to help keep it cutting smooth. Well, we're going to take it as far as she can go. Let's get her ground up. Full tilt. Every adjustment is as far as it'll go. It's all maxed. So, I will tell you, that looks extremely hungry. Extremely. It's the combination of everything. It's not just, like if you were just looking at it across the side, you'd be like, yeah, that looks pretty hungry. But it's the combination of every angle hitting it. You know what I mean? I'm curious to see how this does. Let's get her sharpened up and see what happens. I've seen some hungry chains in my days. I'm telling you, this is the hungriest looking hook or hungriest looking tooth I've ever seen. If this works, I'm expecting this thing to be very difficult to control, but if it works, oh man. This is the 58 gauge setup. I'm doing this one because I want to basically run that bar more and get it a little more broke in for the 58 gauge. It is a 50 gauge bar that I'm running a 58 gauge chain in. It gets a little tight, gets a little hot, it gets a little tight, gets a little hot. It does take power away from the saw, but I want to get it broke in more. So this might be, we might actually run this on the Hopper 372. How about we do that? We'll run this setup on the Bell Hopper 372. It's got a little more power. It's got a bit more power. It's faster. And at the events we just had, that was one of the comments that I heard, is that how easily that saw will overpower a chain. And I'm curious to see if it can overpower this one. So we'll run it on the Hopper built 372. Now I'm not expecting any sort of durability with this chain. Just looking at it, you can tell there's no durability with this thing at all. But it should be interesting regardless. Now, just in case you're wondering why I'm doing this, I'm trying to develop a really fast chain that meets the rules of the competition. We're not allowed to modify the chain other than just sharpen it, really. Round file, round grind, whatever. It just needs to be round. You can't use square or any of that stuff. We can run C83, or we can run, steel hexa, or any other brand of chain if we want. But I'm trying to develop a really fast grind that kind of performs the way I want it to perform, and will literally outperform any of those out of the box chains. That's my goal. So we did discover the 58 gauge is more stable in the bar. And if you're curious about that, I'm not the only person really to test that. 58 gauge chains and bar setups they have less side to side wiggle than 50 gauge. And I believe the same is true for 63 gauge. I believe it's even more stable yet. I remember a while back, Richard Flagg put a video out on it. And I know there's others out there, but yes, the larger gauges have less side-to-side wiggle than 50 gauge. And I'm thinking that might be one of the things that I need to do in the future, is to work at getting more 58 or 63 gauge setups and move away from so much on the 50 gauge. I'm thinking I could also possibly use a bar rail closer and close the gap a little bit, even on a new 50 gauge bar, to help tame up some of that side-to-side wiggle. But yeah, we're all sharpened up. I'm going to show you the grind and show you just how nasty this thing does look, because it looks freaking nasty as all heck. But we're going to put it on the saw and take it out and give it a quick test run. See how it does. We'll do some comparisons later if this works out. So we'll just wait until later to do any comparisons. We just want to see if this is even going to function at all before we start moving towards that. You know what I mean? So let's see what happens. I almost forgot to show you what the chain looks like. She looks pretty rowdy. It's whenever you look at it from this angle that you realize just how rowdy she looks. Let's take her out and see what she does. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's say we were going to throw the feel of the chain out the window and just worry about speed. I think we're kind of moving into that territory. So on the big oak here, you've seen how, look at this, I got chips on my face. But did you notice how I was, able to stall the saw out so easy? So a part of me was actually doing that on purpose. I wanted you guys to see it. The saw is that hungry. It's just flat out that hungry, or the chain. This is something we're going to have to test again because it's just nothing but chatter. In fact, I'll take you over here. Did you notice? I tried to show you a shot of it, but did you notice how it's pulling the fibers on the oak even? It's something you don't typically see on oak, is pulling the fiber of the wood. Oak usually comes out a bit smoother, and this is pulling the fibers out. So let me take you over and show you real quick. This is self-feed on a whole new level. So this is what I'm talking about. You see how it's pulling on the fiber of the wood? You don't typically see this with oak. So let me see if I can get you in here kind of to the side. You see what I'm talking about? It's really pulling the fibers. Oak usually gives you a smoother whatever face or whatever you want to call it. You don't typically see it that much. Now, some of the issues I found earlier, I think, are, how some angles were faster, some angles were slower? I think it's the relationship of all the angles put together. So on the 60-degree setup, I found the setup that worked really good. And then I went to 55 and the settings were different. The top leg angle and everything were different to find the sweet spot for a 55-degree head tilt. And now that I'm at a 40-degree head tilt, the settings are just going to be, different. The question is which of those combinations is going to be the best. And I don't know. This one here feels like it's going to be the best, but only time's going to tell. So I'm pretty certain with the 55 head tilt, it's just a 35-degree top plate and about 22 to 23 thousandths on the raker. With this 40-degree head tilt, I think we're going to definitely be around 20 thousandths on the raker setting. So it feels like I'm just finding the sweet spot of each head tilt angle, and the question is whether or not, or which one of these is going to be the fastest. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking if we continue exploring this chain, we should do it with, definitely, do it with a taller raker. It feels great. It feels like this should be the winner. The self-feed is at a point where you don't have to do anything at all. It does it all for you. It's whenever I start that saw, whenever I start applying pressure, that's what happens. So it's self-feeding at that point to where it's pulling every amount of torque that this saw has to eat through the wood. Now that piece of wood, it exceeded 20 inches, I bet. That was a 20-inch bar, so I bet you that piece of oak's, 22 or so? And it plowed through it like butter. It's just a little rough. It's got a little chatter to it, or I should say a lot of chatter. And any other time you're working chain, chatter usually means you're too deep on the raker. So, what do you know? What do you think? Should we go ahead and stick with this and try going a little less on the raker? I can tell you that 58 gauge bar, I had no issues controlling it in the cut. None at all. It flew through the cut, it straight as an arrow. I had no issues. Nothing about that 58 gauge setup told me that I was going to have issues controlling it through the cut. I think we're definitely 100% set on the 58 gauge setup that I have here. The 58 gauge chain in that 50 gauge bar definitely does seem to be the sweet spot. The problem is finding 50 gauge bars that are wore out enough. So we might try this some more, but actually using a true 58 gauge bar, you know what I mean? Or tightening up our rails to, to a tighter tolerance. Probably going to be that one right there. Probably just going to need to start tightening up the bars or the bar groove or whatever to a tighter tolerance to help tame down some of that wiggle. But anyway, tell me what you guys think. I'm thinking it might not be a bad idea to explore this. Just the way that it's feeling in the cut and everything, the only thing that this chain is telling me it needs is a higher raker. Everything else about it feels spot on. I don't need to worry about physically having to push the saw through the cut. It will do it all by itself, which is great for a race because it'll help you in your transitions. If you're pushing down really hard through the cut, you can end up pulling out of the wood a whole lot. You'll drop down 6, 8, 12 inches out past the wood before you get into your upcut. And with this, I should be able to transition much faster in half the time, really. It ain't gonna hurt, right? It ain't gonna hurt nothing. I just gotta sharpen that chain up a bit more and tame down those rakers. I got a feeling we're heading on a right track. This is full tilt. This is everything that grinder's got, and I think we're getting there. Alrighty, so hey, we'll catch you on the next one. Later.